Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me where we talk today a little bit about activities about social and emotional learning in the classroom using Duolingo for schools. If you're here, please send a message in the chat. Let me know a little bit about yourself. Tell me what you teach. Let me know how long you've been utilizing Duolingo for schools as well. Let me know too if whether or not this is your first PD session with us, or if you've joined me for others in the past. I'd be curious to know what your experience is like with Duolingo for schools and whether or not you've met me before. I am seeing people that I'm seeing people from the Educators Network here, so welcome. If for those of you who don't know me though, I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Bridget. I of course work for Duolingo for Schools. I run our Educators Network, which is a private Facebook group of world language teachers across the globe who utilize Duolingo in the classroom, and they share resources and tips. We hold events, these professional development events, as well as other events through Facebook. So I'm going to be talking about that a little later today as well. Hey Meredith, so great to see you. Thanks for being here. I'm also curious too. I have a little bit of an icebreaker question. If you've been on your Duolingo app recently, you may have seen that we have released our Duolingo year in review for 2022. So please open up your year in review stats on your profile, and I'm curious as to know some of your stats. Know your streak. What's your max streak for the year? As well as how many minutes you've spent, the XP that you've gained, the top percent of a language learner you are on Duolingo. For example, for me, it says I'm a top 3% language learner on Duolingo, which I'm proud of. However, I would have liked to have been better, but that will be a goal for 2023. I have spent a total of 2,630 minutes. I have learned 1,468 words, and my longest streak is 230, and I'm really looking forward to hitting a year. So that's gonna be encompassed in my 2023 goals, is finally hitting that year mark. So I'm really excited. So share a little bit of me, your stats. Let me know a little bit about your learning this past year. And definitely encourage your students to take a look at their language year in review as well, so they can get excited about what they've learned. Hey everybody, 950-day streak. Oh my gosh, that's really impressive. That's super impressive. Wow. And another teacher in our educators network, multiple teachers have actually said this to me, that it's important for them to keep their streaks up so that they're modeling that behavior for their students as well. So really great to see that. Let me know a little bit about some of your stats, and what you think about that, and hopefully your students can get excited about their stats too. But it is just me up here, so I am going to be pausing periodically and checking the chat, just so I can make sure I can get any of your questions. If for whatever reason I don't get to your question, I'll make sure to circle back and email you privately, so I could answer your question for you. And today, of course, we're going to be talking about social and emotional learning in the classroom, what exactly that is, and some activities around that using Duolingo. But we're also going to be talking about an opportunity to get swag for your classroom. So stick around for that to learn a little bit about how to get some swag. Top 8% learner, 180-day streak. Congrats. That's super impressive. Yeah, the streak especially is something that, I know I had a PD event a few months back about the streaks and how we tap into certain psychology around the streaks, one of which that's called loss aversion. It's something I strongly feel I don't want to lose that streak. So I'm diligent about keeping up with that streak. But thank God for streak freezes. Top 1%, I have 106 days, started in late August. Congrats. Oh, amazing. That's awesome. So let's get started. As I mentioned, we're gonna be talking about social and emotional learning and what exactly that is and why is it so important. So social emotional learning is the process through which students acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals. feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. So these represent a total of 5 competencies, which are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, as well as responsible decision making. So we know that social and emotional learning and focusing on these competencies in the classroom make a difference. So from the research, it demonstrates that an education that promotes social and emotional learning has a positive impact on a wide range of outcomes. That this includes academic performance, healthy relationships, mental wellness, and more. So teachers might prepare lessons that help students explore executive functioning skills such as adaptable thinking and self-awareness, and to create a safe, positive learning space for your students, and help your students develop those enhanced social emotional skills. I'm going to be going through 3 different activities that you could implement in your language classroom. So the first one is, if you don't already do this, is student check-in. So checking in allows you to foster a positive relationship with your students, and when done as a group activity, it actually allows your students to also relate positively as a community with both you and their peers. This can be implemented in a few different ways, either by using a daily student check-in sheets, where students are individually filling in a set of answers for you as the teacher to see and to check, or as a group check-in meeting. An example of this group check-in meeting would be something called a whip around, where students are asked to provide an answer to the same question, and that question whips around the room to each student. The questions could be relevant to their lives, such as what's your favorite TV show in the moment, or what did you do over the weekend, for example. But it can also be silly questions in the target language that get students thinking outside of the box, like, for example, asking them to invent a new word for a banana. This kind of activity can not only provide for a fun, quick daily check-in that sets the tone for your class, but also as a way to use the learning language, of course. So you could be asking students to speak in the learning language as much as possible, or maybe they could even be sharing their recently learned vocabulary words on Duolingo, for example, or you could even ask them to share a language concept or grammar point that they're struggling with. And then other students can empathize with them, right, and agree that they're struggling with that. And that way you can take the consensus of the group and you could see what certain grammar points or points of the language that you need to review or perhaps even reteach. It's important in this kind of group activity that students are, of course, encouraged to share, but not forced to share. Students should have the opportunity to politely pass if they don't feel comfortable answering a question. And another tip is, whatever you do to check in, make sure you do this consistently to build up that trust and that community within your class. And I'm actually going to share 2 links, the first of which that we've created is a student check-in sheet. So this is that individual check-in that I was talking about. So you're able to go to that link, download that printable, and start using it tomorrow, for example, for a student check-in sheet. And the next one I'm actually going to show a screenshot of as well. This is a student learning journal. So here's a link to that. And so what that looks like is here. So we see this is a really great activity to help students reflect and tap into those competencies of self-awareness and self-management, right? So we see these skill development questions specifically, as well as personal development questions. So again, I just shared those links with you, so you're able to immediately download those and start implementing them in your class tomorrow if you would like. Next one is goal setting. So an important part of social and emotional learning is helping students set and achieve personal goals. Setting goals helps students self-motivate and feel good about their learning achievements, and research actually shows that using goal setting in the classroom has been proven to raise student achievement. So individual milestones are great, of course, but you could also build accountability and trust in the classroom by setting some goals as a group. For example, if you have a goal for your students to learn 300 words, make sure that you work with your students to set a goal for how many words they're going to learn in a week in order to build up to that final goalpost. Consider check-in schedules to facilitate their journey while giving your students quick bursts of one-on-one attention. Your Duolingo for Schools teacher dashboard is going to be a huge help with this. You're going to be able to ask your students to set a goal indicating the number of lessons that they plan to complete, or perhaps certain an XP amount that they would like to complete. Their goals could include anything from, streaks as well, or even completing a certain amount of units or lessons in order to then complete the whole course eventually. So hopefully our classroom quest that I hope a lot of you were able to participate in the beginning of this school year, the Classroom Quest 2022, hopefully that kind of set that tone for your classroom and helped kickstart your students and classroom as a whole goal setting. And we hope to do that in the future as well, to again encourage goal setting. So don't forget as well, when doing this, to plan small ways to celebrate your students as they manage, achieve, and surpass their goals. I'm going to take a pause for a moment. I'm going to take a look at the chat, see what's going on, make sure I'm not missing any questions. Oh yes, Duolingo ABC. It's another really great way to be teaching literacy for our young learners. Great. Please don't hesitate if you have any questions at all. Please make sure you pop them in the chat. And like I said, if I don't get to them, I'll make sure to reach out to you after the session. But next, I'm going to talk about advanced preparation. So everybody, students included, they like to know what's coming next. In the classroom, preparedness helps students feel safe and ready to put their best foot forward. So one option is to engage your students with repeat reading, where students read the same content multiple times to promote fluency and understanding. This has been shown to increase students' sense of safety within a classroom, as well as their overall reading comprehension. And so how can exactly you implement this without having to plan your material months in advance and share that with your students? You could be trying to use Duolingo stories, for example, or so many of the other Duolingo activities and features that we have, Duolingo podcasts, Duolingo audio lessons, but with stories specifically, you can assign these stories for students to read at home first. And so that after they've had time to practice at home, after they have time to listen diligently to the way that these expressions, these vocab words are pronounced, after they're practicing and memorizing these vocab words within the story, then they can bring this into the classroom for a lesson around the stories. For example, those lessons could include translating the story together, assigning students to create their own extensions of the story, or even acting out skits with the stories as inspiration. So your students are going to feel safer and more likely to participate because they understand the material better. They've been given chance to prepare in advance, to prepare ahead of time, and so that they feel ready for the lesson and they feel safe. So I'm going to share two resources as well with you. The first one is Write Your Own Duolingo Story. So I know when I was teaching, I taught French for 5 years in upstate New York before I moved to the south of France just last year. And I know that when I was teaching, my students loved to get creative and loved to get silly with the language, which was really exciting to see when they started creating their own sentences and putting sentences together. So for that reason, I'm sharing this resource with you. So hopefully your students can also get creative and write their own Duolingo stories. Especially within Duolingo, we have these project world characters that the students have started becoming invested into their personalities, into their stories. So hopefully they can build upon that momentum and get excited and create with the learning language within the realm of their personalities and their stories. And the next one actually is all about story reenactment. So being able to, create skits around the stories. And this is actually a teacher made resource who was shared with us through the Educators Network. So it's another great reason to join us in the Educators Network. Teachers are creating such amazing resources and sharing there. So I'm sharing this with you here. Our wonderful educator, Catherine, created it. So these are some instructions where you could be taking these stories and acting them out in the classroom. Another way for your students to get creative, get excited, and use the learning language. So just a quick little recap. One thing is to make sure you check in with your students often, both individually as well as a group. So you're making sure that you're tapping into that community, you're creating those healthy relationships, not only with you, but also amongst their peers so they can all share and get to know one another and feel safe. Another one is to encourage and help students with goal setting, both individual goals and then, of course, as a classroom. And hopefully the classroom quest kind of gave you a jump start this year. And hopefully in the following years to come, those classroom quests that Duolingo for Schools is presenting to you are going to definitely help you and your students to get excited about goal setting and about achieving something as a class. And then lastly, help your students feel safe by preparing them for what's to come next, and utilize Duolingo for Schools content to help you do that, to help assign students material ahead of time so that they know what to expect, and then let them know in class what exactly they're going to be doing with that material. So now that I've given you some quick little tidbits as to how to focus on social and emotional learning in your classroom, utilizing Duolingo for Schools, I know that I'm preaching to the choir. I know that this is something that you educators do every day without even thinking about it. So I'm really curious as to what are some of your tips for teaching social emotional learning skills? What are some things that you do in the classroom that focus on these relationship building skills, focus on students feeling safe, on self-awareness, self-management, etc. So I'm really curious. We know that as educators, our jobs isn't solely to be teaching vocab and grammar and the language itself, the culture, but it's also to be teaching these types of skills that students are going to be taking and using for the rest of their lives beyond your classroom. So I'm really curious. Share with me in the chat a little bit of some of the tips and tricks that you use to teach these skills. From our last session earlier this week, I had someone share that they utilize games a lot, and this was a really great way for students to feel comfortable within their peers. They're focusing on a goal together, playing, winning a game, right? Competition, but also being able to not be afraid to make mistakes because they're so used to working together and simply having fun and playing the game. So that's a really great way to sneakily teach some of these social and emotional skills for your students. So yeah, definitely share with me some ideas. Like I said, these are just some quick ideas that we had with our team, but you do this every day. So I'm really curious as to what you do. And next, I want to hopefully solicit some feedback from you. So we really love hearing from teachers, and you're consistently, adding new features and new resources to help you. It's one of the great reasons for the Educators Network, not only for yourselves, but for our team. We're always listening to teachers and their feedback. I was a past language teacher in another life. It seems so long ago. But I'm not anymore. I'm not, in front of hundreds of students, sometimes a day, right? Teaching and utilizing Duolingo in the classroom on a daily basis, such as yourselves. So you're really those who know best the product and what exactly you need for the classroom. So one of the first things I want to ask about specifically is around PD, because of course world language teachers are not always getting, consistent PD specifically for them and for world language. So I'm really curious to know, in the future, what would you like me to focus on? What would you like to hear from me? What kind of thing that you would like me to research and kind of give you a quick little scoop about? So let me know a little bit about PD sessions that you'd like to see in the future. And then next, I'd be really curious to know, what are some Duolingo resources that might be helpful for you? How best can the Duolingo for Schools team help not only yourself, but also your students in the classroom? What exactly you would like to see us create for you in order to make your jobs a little bit easier. So you could be submitting this feedback now in the chat, of course. You could be submitting this feedback anytime in the Educators Network and starting a conversation there with myself as well as other members of the team. Or you could send us a private email to educators@duolingo.com, and I'll make sure actually to make it a little easier, I'll drop this in the chat so you have it. So let us know any type of feedback for the future. Speaking of connecting on social media, I talked a little bit about the Educators Network. If you're not already a member of Educators Network, let me drop that link here now as well so that you could join us. So I really strongly believe that's one of the best things about Duolingo for Schools. It's a really great way to network with other world language teachers from around the world, learn tips and tricks, share resources, get resources that have already been shared, as well as connect with the Duolingo for Schools team. So please connect and join us there. And if you're not on Facebook for whatever reason, feel free to follow us on other social media sites such as Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn as well. We have a LinkedIn account, so connect with us there and get a part of the conversation. Ooh, I just see Meredith shared that we have a "How have you been? How is your family?" check-in at the beginning of class. Adult learners who have class once a week. Super important, yeah. As well for adults, right? We think of these things for young students, of course, but we as adults, we also need that check-in. We also need that relationship building to feel safe within the classroom. So good to hear. And we also have a poster where students track their goals along the proficiency continuum. I love that. So students are able to see, that end goal of proficiency and what they're going to be able to achieve with the language. So Meredith, I'd be curious, do you use ACTFL proficiency guidelines then? And so are students able to see what that looks like from A1 to C1? Or are your proficiency continuums, are they specific for your district and maybe look a little bit different, these can-do statements that you have created? Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I promised to talk a little bit about how you can get swag for your classroom. So students, as well as teachers, are always excited about getting swag. So I wanted to share an opportunity to get swag. So we are going to send the first 50 teachers to download and host any of our PD events, whether it be this one that I just shared with you, or whether it be any of our past PD events. I've done events on student streak societies, as I mentioned. I've done events on the Duolingo podcast. I've done events on how to lower the affective filter in your classroom with Duolingo for Schools, et cetera, et cetera. So you're able to download and host any of these PD events. And you're going to be sent a swag box that includes stickers for your classroom. It includes an insulated Duolingo for Schools tumbler, as well as a wool Duolingo for Schools beanie and more. So what we ask is that you download the slide deck, you schedule your PD session, you invite attendees, you fill out a presenter feedback form, and you're going to share some info and pictures with us so you can get your swag, as well as ask your attendees to fill out the attendee feedback form. So talking a little bit more about that is, you might be asking yourself, well, where am I going to find attendees for this? So if you have a department meeting at your school, we suggest that you schedule a PD session with them. If you don't have a department meeting, or if that's just simply not an opportunity of which you could be scheduling PD sessions, you could be posting about it on Twitter, you could be tagging us, you could be sharing that, you could be networking on Twitter, reaching out to other world language teachers, whether that be through Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn or TikTok or whatever social media that you may be involved with already. So you could be trying to network with other world language teachers there. Or you could also be recruiting teachers from the Educators Network. So you could be posting in the Educators Network, seeing whether or not there are other teachers that would be interested in having these conversations with you and talking about professional development, specifically for world language teachers. I've had this question in the past, whether or not this needs to be in person. It doesn't. It could be in person, it could be hybrid, it could be solely virtual. It's totally up to you how you would like this PD session to look. And I talked about the PD materials, where you could find them. You could find them in the Educators Network under the guides section. So you see this image here. It's under professional development. You're going to find the presenter feedback form, the attendee feedback form, as well as all the slide decks. Or I'm going to share with you as well in the chat. This is our help center, specifically the category about professional development. And here you're going to see not only all of the past sessions, and when you click into the past session, you're going to be seeing the recording of the session. as well as the slide decks, any relevant materials necessary, the resources that I shared. For example, during this session, I shared the student learning journal, the story reenactment instructions, etc. You're going to see that all there. But you're also going to see upcoming PD sessions. So make sure you bookmark that page, check back often to see some of our upcoming PD sessions as well. And so you can get involved then as well. And then, as I mentioned, the presenter feedback form specifically that you're going to find in the Educators Network. So this is something you're going to be filling out in order to get your swag, of course. You're going to be filling out details such as who attended, a picture if possible, an attendee list if possible, as well as information as to how it went. And then the attendee feedback form, something similar. We're asking your attendees to let us know how it went, as well as some feedback for any kind of future PD sessions that they would like to see. And for example, if you are doing this for your department meeting, maybe you have an hour as a department meeting. This is about a 20-minute or so session. So you need to beef that up. You need to make it a work session. So here are just some quick ideas. You could be discussing these techniques from the session and brainstorming new ideas. You could be breaking out into small groups, brainstorming what these ideas are going to look like in the classroom specifically. And then perhaps the most important thing is you're having that actionable item done, something that you could walk away with and have done for the following days. For example, a new lesson plan that you could implement, tomorrow in your class around one of these ideas. And if you have any questions at all, as I mentioned, you're free to reach out to us anytime at educators@duolingo.com. So any questions at all, comments, concerns, please reach out to us at educators@duolingo.com. You're also able to connect, of course, on the Educators Network and see if anyone else has questions or answers amongst your questions. And then our team is there as well to help you. So, and if you're new to Duolingo for Schools and you need a little bit of help as to how to get started, we suggest checking out our help center, and that's going to be able to be accessed from the link I just shared with you. But if you don't have access to the link, you could access it from the left-hand side of your Duolingo for Schools dashboard. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to take a look now. Yes, use ACFA proficiency guidelines. Amazing. And a lot of times kids do not want to share stuff, but as adults, we are kind of dismissive. So I feel teachers should be less of strict judgmental adults and more of a friendly sensei. For example, I do love discussing about cartoons and comics with my students, and many of them open up and be more attentive in my class rather than the classes of other strict teachers. Absolutely. Yeah, that when talking about social and emotional learning, another really important thing is as you're mentioning here, is just your attitude, right? Being friendly, and that also not only with these discussions as you're mentioning, right, talking about cartoons and comics and relating with your students, but also think about your body language, your posture, right? Crossing your hands, something like that is not going to create a welcoming environment for your students. Make sure to bend down, get on their level, kind of get on the floor, eye to eye with them at their desk, so they're not feeling intimidated. These are just some other tips and tricks as to how to create a welcoming environment for your students. And you're right, students sometimes they're going to be maybe a little nervous to open up to you. So being able to make sure that you're a trusting adult and you're connecting with them and relationship building with them throughout the year is going to go a long way for them eventually opening up to you and connecting a little bit more. And so that's another reason for which too, with these activities, it's important to give them an opportunity to politely pass, to not force them to be answering you every day as how are you? Tell me about your weekend. What did you do? Be specific. Just allowing them to naturally open up to you. That's, of course, the hope there. Yeah, thank you so much for being here, everybody. And if you have any questions at all that I didn't get to, please feel free to reach out to me at educators@duolingo.com. And if not, I will see you in the Educators Network. So enjoy your day, everybody. Thank you. Bye, everybody.